my final question for you is, and usually where I end the show, is some variation of, if there was some advice you could go back and give to yourself at any stage in your writing career that would have made things easier for you, and might make easier the paths of all the writers who are listening or watching us now, what would you go back and tell yourself?
It's a really great question. I think that there's a lot of things I would tell myself. The list is really long, to be honest. I would have started this a long time ago. I wouldn't have waited so long. But I think the biggest advice I can give people is don't believe your own press. You know, because what happens, I think, Rob, is a lot of us, we write a book, and it's a pretty impressive thing, by the way, to write a book. And anybody out there that has written a book, I mean, it's very impressive that you did that, and kudos to you. But the hard thing to remember is again, how much work is still to be done, that you may not be any good yet, and that's hard to accept, right? Because you just written a book and you show your brother and your mother and your uncle and your neighbor, and they all love it. And they don't understand why you're not published and selling 1 million copies. And you think it's brilliant. You believe that, right? And so you don't understand why you can't. And you send it to agent after agent, and they tell you no. And whatever reason, it doesn't resonate for whatever reason. It could just be like, we've had too many vampire books this year. We don't want any more vampire books. Your book is great, but we don't want it. Whatever the reason. But in most cases, what I find is that people are deluding themselves that their book is ready, that they're ready, and that the world should just, you know, be excited that they wrote it, and therefore they should be rewarded, you know, by getting that book deal that they want. And that, in fact, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of uncovering of what kind of a writer they're going to become, and that they may not be any good till their 4th or 5th book. You know, that first book is the first book, and that's great. And that what they really need to do is learn how to edit, revise, and take critical feedback. It's really hard to be criticized, to be critiqued. I've had some of the best editors give me just some of the most painful, you know, excruciating, you know, feedback. Yeah, obviously you're talented as a writer, Alane, but this character is boring and plain, and we've seen it all before, and you're obviously very talented. Thank you for that. But we, you know, there's nothing here new or original, and that's hard to hear. I had one editor tell me when they were editing The Red Sun that if they saw the word red one more time, they were gonna, you know, poke their eye out, because I used the word red, you know, probably 5,000 times, because it's about the red sun. Okay, the sun is red. Go figure. I use the word red a lot. But you don't know what's wrong until you get critical feedback by people that you respect, and by people that are professional. And I don't mean you again, not your brother, your mother, your uncle, and your friend, your best friend, your husband, all that kind of stuff. By people that are in the industry and that know what sells and what is current and what people are looking for. It's going to conferences and understanding what the market is looking for. It's networking and being told no over and over again, and still standing up and still becoming a writer and writing the next book. Because your first book you wrote, it may be your dream child and all that, but you know, if you don't think you can write that next book, then you're kidding. I mean, you gotta sit down and start writing the next book as well. And because writing, it's like playing soccer. Imagine you only played soccer once. And you said, well, that was the best. Look, I played soccer once. I played the game. What you expect me to play again? Well, yeah, how are you going to get any better? You got to keep playing, right? You can't just play soccer once and record the game and say, well, look, everybody, I played soccer, right? You're like, look at me. I scored 3 goals. You know, I'm great. Okay, well, what you got to keep going. And I think that's what people don't understand. They get stuck on, I wrote this book and now I need to do something with it. Okay, well, maybe it's a doorstop. I don't know. Maybe it is worth it. But if people keep telling you no, and you really want to be a writer, then maybe you need to start really looking at what kind of writer do you want to be? What is selling in that market? What are people looking for? How do you fit into that market? Did you really edit and revise to the way it needs? Or were you just spinning your wheels? Were you just spinning your wheels over and over on the perseverating on the same thing and not really getting a fresh take, you know, meaning outside advice into what's really wrong with the story? Is it marketable length? You know, if you're going to write a 150,000 word novel, I'm sorry, I don't think anybody's going to buy it. George R.R. Martin can get away with it. Most people can't. If you have an opus like that, you know, it's probably not marketable, especially as a first novel. It's got to be 80,000 words there. You know, and if it's a children's book, it's got to be a lot less, really. So I think it's just really educating. You know, if I was to give advice to people, if I wish I had known what I know now, I wish I'd known it then. I don't know how to become an author. No, I'm kidding. Because it's hard work. And like I said, people critique you, people, you know, kick you and tell you you're terrible, and other people tell you you're wonderful and you don't know who to believe, you know, and you're at the whim of everybody, except yourself. So I think that stay the course and become the best writer. Develop your skills as a writer, and don't get hung up. Like I said, don't believe your own press. Just keep going forward and developing your skills, and network with other writers and network with conferences. There's all kinds of conferences for like children's authors. You have SCBWI, the Society of Children Writers, book writers, illustrators. There's thriller fiction. There's all kinds of thriller conferences where you can connect with people like Lee Childs and all these other great authors. You can meet them in person. So I think if you really want to be an author, are you doing all those things? Editing, getting professional editors, going to conferences, networking with agents, getting feedback on your story, revising it, and then realizing, okay, if this is not going to sell, I still want to be an author, then set this aside and write the next story, because maybe it'll be better, because having written it once, maybe the next time it'll be better. You'll be better at it because you did it once. You know you can do it again. If you do it once, you can do it twice, you can do it 3 times, you can be like Alane, do it 12 times, right? You can just keep doing it. So I hope that was good advice.
That was tremendous advice. And anyone that wants more, I know you've got a section on your website, the Iron Jaw, that writers can go and read your thoughts on writing